Rolling. Okay. You're listening to the Phatcast live from the studio with Colin Reynolds. Good afternoon. You're watching the Phatcast. I'm your host, Colin Reynolds, and today my special guest is Mr. Kelly Ottaway.
Hello, Colin.
Hello, Kelly.
Wonderful to be here.
It's great to see you.
Thank you very much. It's great to see me too.
Now that was a really, that was something else, that piece that you played.
Oh yeah, yes. That comes from a very, very special place. That tune was entitled "For When I Have No Words."
For when I have no
For when I have
words.
no words, when words fail me, in the sight of, well, let's just say, in the sight of beauty, that I would say is a piece that comes to mind if I was to describe something that's quite gorgeous, something that's quite moving
Sure.
to see and to be a part of. That took me 3 days to write.
Sure.
Because I wanted it to be just right, just so. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of time playing it. And it was a piece that I originally arranged for big band. And everything that I write for bigger ensembles always starts at the piano.
Of course.
So that I've got a handle on it, so that I know that what I'm playing is possible to be played by other people, although sometimes they complain that it doesn't happen because, it's a keyboard player writing parts for horns, and sometimes it's a bit of gymnastics.
I really like those. You had this part where you had like 3 ascending majors.
3 ascending majors. I've got to think about this. Where?
Maybe the first one's a minor, actually.
I've never had anybody analyze my music back to me.
Sure.
I've had the compliments, but not like I see in bar 4 here. But I have to think about that one.
That's the nitty gritty stuff that I love.
Yeah.
To analyze, and not pretending that I can remember every note for note or anything like that. But I'll go later and study that bit of music and mine it for its gold.
Yeah.
And then forget about you and steal all your ideas. I'm kidding. Okay. Sort of.
That's all right. If you were to steal from me, it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
They say good artists borrow, great artists steal.
I think that's kind of true.
Look, the meaning I interpret from that is now taking someone's melody or someone's chord sequence or even their intervals and just like saying, oh, that's all great there, and then I'll use that. That's borrowing. Because you haven't done anything with it. You've just like copied and pasted what they've got into what you've got. That's borrowing. Stealing is when you understand why someone's used an interval in a certain spot. And then, oh, God, that all makes sense now. And then in an entirely different context, you write, I've got the interval for this. Bang, that's stealing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting take. I haven't thought of it that way before. The way that I think about that borrowing and stealing, I think sometimes it just happens unconsciously.
Oh, sure.
Because speaking personally about writing music or arranging music, I always lean on or go back to what it is that originally inspired me to want to write. And I listen to those artists. And, like if I listen to Oliver Nelson, Bob Brookmeyer, the arrangements of Sammy Nestico, Thad Jones, those kind of post-bop, even earlier than that, those kind of arrangers that were working in a traditional sense but were then pushing the boundaries. Listening to a lot of those, I don't think I've ever consciously gone to their music and going, right, what is it that I can take away from this?
Oh, no,
I've always listened to it intently, and I think it's osmosis. A lot of it for me is osmosis.
Yep.
I mean, there's the scores that go with it to understand the techniques that they use.
Yep.
I could say with confidence that I've never really lifted anything from the scores as stealing as such, but the osmosis of listening and understanding, it all just it sits in the cask, and comes out as delicious whiskey.
Right.
That's a terrible analogy, but
that's
all I got.
Whiskey can be delicious when it is.
It always is, isn't it?
I'm sure there are non-delicious whiskies.
I'm sure there are times it's like drinking razor blades. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, different kinds of whiskey.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that took a tangent.
Yeah, no, I think we kind of a different mental process of grappling with the same thing, which is where you've not just observed something, but that something that you've borne witness to has become a part of your own process.
Yeah.
This is the organically absorbing your environment of stimulus, and working that into what you do creatively without necessarily doing the maths and like, hey, this can do that.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right. That's exactly right. I could sort of give you an example that's kind of related at the same time not, but it kind of highlights how important the listening aspect of music is alongside the practicing. And the participating as well, but the listening is very key. I know of a colleague of mine who had a student who played saxophone.
Okay.
And he was dead keen on being a great improviser, a great jazz saxophonist.
Yep. Down
for it. And the question that was asked of him is like, well, what do you listen to? And he said, I listen to a lot of Bon Jovi. Rattled off a whole series of other bands. Of things that aren't associated with the very thing that he wanted to be very good at.
Yep.
And he said, well, do you actually see the disconnect there? You see what you have to listen to absorb, to actually get it into your soul. Because it's soul expression for me. It's so intertwined with emotion, that to be exposed to that in that way is vital, or else there's no development, there's no growth. I mean, I think it goes, goodness me, my brain's not switched on at the moment. But there's this thing about assimilating and replicating. I just can't remember what there's three words in it, and it's something-cating, assimilating and replicating.
Defecating, obviously.
Well, you could throw that in. For some people, you could throw that in if you wish.
Extricating.
That's the whole, part of the process of wanting to be a good musician in whatever it is, whatever style of music.
You kind of need to be. It forms part of your musical vocabulary.
Oh, for sure.
And so I think this relates directly, like just my own composing experience over the couple of decades I've been playing. Okay. What a surprise that at every moment, any composition I've made comprised only stuff that I had in my vocabulary. True. What a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I mean, in the early days, for example, just the whole concept of music theory, and I had no idea, like most people probably, what music theory actually is. I thought about it as the language of music theory. And to me, that was the theory. This is this key and this is this sharp and all of that stuff. And I found all that a bit overwhelming. And I was thinking, oh, well, that doesn't help me play a Metallica solo, or, that's just kind of where my mind was at. And it's not until many years later I got more interested in not just the nuts and bolts, the actual language of music theory, but the actual theory behind music. As in, when a certain interval followed by another certain interval has a particular feeling to it.
Yeah.
You can create particular feelings with particular sequences.
Yeah.
And movie soundtracks was like my gateway into a more sophisticated understanding of what makes music up.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that the stuff that I'm capable of writing now is light years ahead of the stuff that I was writing 10, 20 years ago. and it's all because of this vocabulary. Being able to, you spend thousands and thousands of hours listening to all sorts of different stuff. It becomes a part of how you think about music.
Very true.
And like earlier on, I could listen to some really spicy jazz and think, oh, well, that sounds horrible. And now it's like those sweet, spicy notes,
So in part, what you're saying is that your intellect around some forms of music has leveled up because of the appreciation of the theory behind some of the things that they do.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
And I think this relates to your saxophonist who wanted to speak the language without having the vocabulary.
Running before they could walk.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I take my hat off to that student for wanting to, go down that road to reach higher than what he was capable of doing. But it was the groundwork necessary to to achieve that was lacking.
Yes.
And that's what I get through to the students, that I teach. I had a student today who dropped into my place to have a vibraphone lesson.
Wow.
And he's a drummer, first and foremost, and he's played some piano and keyboard in the past. But we got onto some vibraphone players that that I suggested he'd listen to, and I always ask the question of, who do you listen to? Have you heard of Milt Jackson?
Sure.
No. Have you heard of Red Norvo? No. Have you heard of Bobby Hutcherson? Have you heard of Gary Burton, or Mike Mainieri, or Stephen Harris? Have you heard of? And it was like, no. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do if you want to play vibes. You want to improvise on vibraphone. Listen to some improvisers. And having done that, I gave him a couple of things to listen to. And I just got a message from his mum before saying that he's hard at it at the keyboard and he's listening. He's enthused.
Brilliant.
And I feel rewarded because of that. But I think he's going to realise the benefits of doing that now.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, he's grade 7, so he's 12. He's getting into it now.
For sure.
That's massive.
And like as much of a slow ramp as this process is of picking up and listening and learning, sometimes there are just certain breakthrough pieces. You'll hear a certain piece and suddenly you understand something that you hadn't previously understood.
Yeah.
And this really invigorates your sense of like, oh my God, now there's this whole new world to explore now that I know about this particular thing, whatever the thing may be.
That's a good point. I think from personal experience, when you're talking about that, when you say doors open,
right,
a whole different world opens and possibilities. In my own situation, I perform live a lot. I gig a fair amount.
A fair amount.
A fair amount. Oh, goodness, I thought I was going to lose my mind last year. But anyway, I gig a fair amount. But it can, I don't want to say it can get stale or mundane, but there is a sense of routine to it that you feel like, well, where can I go next with this? What is the next thing? Where can I possibly put my efforts in creating something new or trying something new, not reinventing something, but trying something different. And I just went over to a friend's place and they happened to have some lo-fi hip-hop playing on in the background.
Lo-fi hip-hop.
Right?
What a fantastic genre.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, yes.
I think it's beautiful how that style of music can evoke melancholy. So I think the basis for my character is very melancholy. I like to reminisce. I like to think about things of past, and I like to sit out in a sunrise and watch the colours change, with whatever I'm imbibing on at the time, and just slowly taking it in, like absolutely ceasing to move And I heard this, and I thought there is similarities to the jazz language.
Absolutely.
Lots of similarities.
I have a favourite, and many, but one particular favourite YouTube presenter called Adam Neely.
Yes.
Young music professor.
Yeah, Adam Neely, yeah.
And in a nutshell, he says, someone asked him, how do I make lo-fi hip-hop? He said, jazz chords and low effort.
low effort. That's part of it.
There's this. And, I mean, that's the joke. He's having a joke, but and there's this brilliant trick he used. Now so he has two keyboards there. One of them is tuned 50 cents flat.
Yes.
Okay, and then on his bass, two of the strings are tuned 50 cents flat. So between the two, he basically shifts between. He'll take a fairly pedestrian jazz, even like a 2-5-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's shifting between the two keyboards,
yeah.
So you get this brilliantly.
It's warped.
Oh, totally, absolutely chaotic. But then, he'll create a loop with this, and then just create a bit of a bass line. But once again, switching between Then that's so good. That's good.
Part of I suppose, the nostalgia aspect of it, because this is the kind of thing that you would throw on a tape,
right?
And you'd let the tape bake in the sun, and then you chuck it in your player, and there are plugins that do that.
Sure.
The Isotope plugin. I've plugged that, so hopefully I'll get a sponsor. The Isotope plugin does that perfectly.
Brilliant.
The dust. The cutting of the high and the low ends and the warp aspect of it. But you see, all of that just, I don't know, it just gives me warm, fuzzy feelings inside, Colin. Warm, fuzzy feelings is what it gives me. And it's like, I can create this. I have the tools to do this.
Yep.
And so I've been dabbling with that ever since.
Well, see, somebody like you creating something like that is someone like Walter White creating a drug. You know what I mean? Because
sure.
Just in the sense that it's like killing a fly with a baseball bat. I mean,
well, you see, I know where you're coming from when you say killing a fly with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Because I have filled my head with a lot of knowledge, a lot of theory, a lot of understanding, voicings and scales and harmonies. And lo-fi hip-hop will only have about 2 or 3 chords.
That's right.
And the simplest of melodies. But, sort of harking back to what we were talking about before, in some vein, that I wouldn't be able to do that unless I had all that knowledge.
Totally.
It's a case of stripping back.
Or at least the stuff that you can create has, as simple as it may seem, in its execution, layers upon layers of sophistication in terms of what made you choose that note, what made you choose that chord.
Exactly. And this is great where the conversation is going, because this actually leads me to the next venture that I'm actually going on.
Yep.
And
is this the live composition?
This is the live streaming of composition.
Yep.
Which I've been wanting to do for ages. The only thing that is hamstringing me is, to a degree, my incompetence around the hardware and the software, which I'm going to get my head around eventually. But that's the road I want to go down, is a 6-7 hour session, just down with the tools, and whoever wants to drop in and say hi and just pick up what I'm putting down when it comes to that kind of music. And even those that are more knowledgeable than me can actually, I'm hoping, would reach out to me and give me the advice I need.
Sure.
Because I don't know it all.
No, nobody does.
I wish I did, but I don't. And that's what I'm hoping that'll happen. And leading on to that, in the current environment that we live in, where, all things pandemic just puts the clappers on anything to do with live performance and some of the restrictions that are associated with that. I personally believe that in some ways this is where
streaming is like a lot of the future media will be in that.
That's where performers need to go down. They need to investigate that. There's nothing like being in a live venue. There's nothing can ever replace that. but I think it needs to be investigated more.
Yep.
You know, so I'm putting the time in, not just in the craft of putting some lo-fi and chill hop together. It's actually understanding how this world of live streaming actually works.
Yep.
Yeah.
I won't be able to help you much with the composition, but I can possibly help you with the technology.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
All right, I've given you my pitch. Great.
Yep. Brilliant. Lo-fi hip hop. That's one of my favorite things, to chuck on house music.
Yeah.
On the main lines.
Mm.
Because to almost everyone, it sounds like it might be jazz.
Well, it is.
Well, it is jazz in a way. In a way.
And some of it is just complete samples from
totally. Yeah. Here's a Charlie Parker sample, and put it next to a slow burning Enigma beat, and there's your
set.
Yep.
I mean, there's a couple of artists that I wish I could. I'm hopeless with remembering artists' name. I hear the tune, I go Shazam, and it's there in the phone. I go, great, I'm going to listen to that later.
Yep.
Don't ask me who the artist is, but there are artists that I've listened to it and I've grabbed it because I hear that's Bill Evans.
Sure.
But that's only 2 bars of Bill Evans.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, or I hear the start of a standard, but it's only the first 4 bars of a standard.
Yep.
That has been treated that way.
Yep.
That grabs me every single time because that is the traditional language, I suppose, that I've been listening to for so long.
And also something about the conditioning of, think about a lot of the gigs you play. You don't necessarily always, in between every song, okay, guys, now what are we going to play next? Or have a list necessarily straight to it. Someone just starts the groove of the next song, and you're like, you need to be able, he's playing Blue Skies. Let's get into the Blue Skies.
That's it.
You know?
That's it.
So part of the conditioning of how you recognise songs has got to do with these gigs you played and how they tend to start up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That reminds me of, I think some of the most rewarding gigs that I've actually done of late, when it comes to that thing you talk about of listening, have been the totally improvised gigs that I've done with a couple of musicians. When we talk about Seb Volvig on bass and Tom Robb on drums, you know that's
well-known characters to us both.
That for me is a happy accident. I was not expecting that kind of simpatico, synchronicity.
Yep.
Wasn't expecting that between the 3 of us. But every time that we're on we've only done it a handful of times. Whenever it's happened, it's like we're not going to play tunes. We're not going to play tunes. Somebody's going to start something.
Slam some grooves.
We're going to start something, then go somewhere with it.
Yeah.
And before you know it, 40 minutes is up. And it's like, where has that gone?
Totally.
Where has it gone?
How young is he? So young. But he's a gun.
Yeah. What is he? 20?
Yeah.
I'm guessing
around that, right? Maybe 19. Like, I don't know. Oh, it's hard for me to judge.
I know. I'd say
he's
20.
He's taller than me.
I'd say 20 because I accompanied Seb in one of his exams, and that was about 2 years ago, I think.
Right.
I'm sure
timing-wise.
I'm sure he'll correct me on that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what I'm gauging at. Like some of these up-and-coming students that I see, I go, how old are you? When was the last time I accompanied you in college when I was playing on your exam? I was, 2016, which means now that you're 24. 24?
Yeah.
It's that kind of position.
And Tom has a very interesting compositional angle outside of drumming too.
Yes.
He's like electronica.
Yeah.
The ambient, at times chaotic, at times melodic. And recently I had the pleasure of seeing him and Jackie perform together.
Oh, yeah.
And Jackie, obviously she's a very accomplished jazz singer, perfectly wonderful voice. But she's also got this pop sensibility too.
Yeah.
And she's using just a couple of effects.
Yeah.
And she knows how to, for example, the harmonizer, right?
Yeah.
She'll know when to use it, when not to.
Yeah.
She's got this great restraint and the ability to create a simple melodic hook.
Yeah.
And then it'll be the 3rd or the 4th time you hear it with the harmony.
Yeah.
And it's that sounds so great. And those two performing together, QE, I think is the name of that act.
QE.
QE.
Okay.
There's a funny story behind a misspelled name there. But
Okay.
I believe that QE is the name of the act. That's Tom and Jackie together.
Yeah. Right. I've yet to see them.
Oh, it was so good.
Tom was talking to me about it, and I would be keen to actually see them perform. But now I've yet to catch up with him and get some times and dates when they're going to be doing it.
We see there's some similarity between Tom's electronica and my electronica solo act. We actually end up with completely different products, and this may be the difference in a drummer approaching it from a guitarist approaching it.
Yeah.
But completely different product.
Yeah.
But not so much of a different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, few little bits of gadgets, improvised everything.
Yeah.
Yep. And synthesizers and electronica, that's like a hole that I've kind of fallen into.
That's a deep hole.
It is. And I think I've successfully managed to not buy any new synths for 4 months, maybe 5 months. Maybe it's 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, something like that.
4 months.
Yeah, the last one I bought was the K Oscillator.
Yeah, right.
And that is a brilliant little bit of gear.
I've seen it in operation. See, all of these things you're talking about are the things that in my dreams I would like to get my hands on if, the Sponduli.
Sure.
The Sponduli was in the account, It is fascinating where it can possibly go. And it is the proverbial rabbit hole. It never ends.
Sometime, what I'd love to do is perhaps just get you there on the piano.
Yep.
And I rock up with some electronica.
Yep.
And we sit there and we make some sounds.
I'd be down for that.
I'd love to do that.
I'd be down for that.
Yep.
I think that would be a great idea. So what, you take a signal from the keyboard and then just...
Oh, no, I'll just have you play separately. Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, of course. I can give you like a harmonic backdrop.
Yeah.
And or just an entirely rhythmic backdrop, and you can chuck your flavors in. See,
I would like to actually send you a live feed from me.
We can do that, and then I perhaps cut and loop and flip what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yep.
No, that interests me.
Great.
So whatever it is I put out to you, you just do with as you wish.
Do a thing with it. Yep.
That's great.
That sounds awesome fun.
That's great. And that's the thing that I'm more excited about these days.
Sure.
See, I feel like I've cut my teeth doing acoustic jazz, which I still love doing.
Yep.
I still love doing, but it's...
At this point, it's just miles on the road.
I just want to make this very clear for the third time. I still love doing. I'm not spurning it. It's just, what is it that I need to excite me?
But you but you don't want it to fill up time that you could be using to necessarily explore all of these unexplored, fascinating things you can do with music.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only got one life, right?
Exactly.
We only got this short time to explore what we want to explore.
Yeah.
So, absolutely keep doing the acoustic jazz, but not all the time. Take some time to explore some other stuff too.
And it's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Have good fun with that, as in the months and hopefully the years that unfold. That I'll, put some good tracks out there for people to hook into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wicked.
It is.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Kelly. It's been a pleasure.
It has. It's been wonderful. It's been great. Thank you so much for having me along, and thank you to the production staff for bringing this all together.
And I'll see you guys next week.